Hello Ratbags, it's Jade Plays Games. Welcome to a Subnautica Below Zero impressions video. You've probably seen me do the Let's Play. I've pretty much covered the whole story now and it's quite limited. It is early access of course. Below Zero is the second instalment of the universe of Subnautica and it is about to be in early access for about a year. The first game, Subnautica, of course, was in early access for much longer. And it was their real big shot at the big time. They sold millions of copies, Unknown Worlds, to developers, and it is just pretty much received as one of the best exploration survival games out there. But right now, in its current state, Below Zero, I just can't recommend buying it. Not yet, anyway. Now, this isn't a hate video. I'm literally recording this all off the cuff. I'm not doing it over and over again. You're just going to hear me ramble on talking about the good points, the bad points of the actual Below Zero content and whether or not it was right to release it as an early access. So there will be mild spoilers ahead if you're not already aware, but you probably have seen most of the story. That's the first point. The content in Below Zero right now as an early access game really only lasts about maybe 2.5 hours if you're not very good at this game or you've not really played it before. Maybe a bit longer because it will take you a while to work out how to craft certain stuff, how to get resources, and you'll definitely have much more enjoyment and a little bit longer exploring things. If you're an old Subnautica fan, you'll sail through this in about 2 hours, maybe less, maybe even an hour and a half if you're really good or you just really want to get to the next part of the story. Now that's not a good thing. Obviously Subnautica is not one of these games you're meant to really race through. It is a wonderful, beautiful world when you explored the first one. There were so many different biomes to go and explore, so many creepy moments and new creatures. It is one of them experiences that's best left taking your time. But in the same breath, Subnautica was best for me when I played it all in one chunk over a period of time. If you played Subnautica during early access, you would have seen updates come every few months, adding a brand new biome, new vehicles, new items, and that's great. Some games really do well with that, and I think for the first game it was important. It was their first real departure from what they've made previously, and they wanted to get feedback and wanted to see how things played out, and of course it did take them a long time to complete Subnautica. But they sold like 4 or 5 million copies of that game, correct me if I'm wrong. They've kind of got the experience now, and it surprised me when they announced that Below Zero was going to be an early access title. I said this a year ago when I first heard about the plans, but then it was going to be DLC, it wasn't going to be a standalone game, and the idea that DLC would be in early access baffled me, because you've been a success. You've successfully made a first game. It's widely received and welcomed as one of the best there is. So why do you need to do early access? Now, of course, devs want feedback, and that's their main thing that they've stressed. They want to see feedback for the game. They want to get input, and it gives them a chance to add stuff that people want. But I don't know. I feel like after such a certain amount of time, you should probably have the plans in place. And while it's great to get feedback and ideas, I think that's what open betas can be for. I think that's what closed alphas can be for. It could be for what panels are. You can give codes to people that you respect from reviews in Steam and let them give you some input. Instead, we've got another process where it's going to be early access. We're going to get drip-fed content over the next few months. And it just doesn't work for this game. In a good way and a bad way. Subnautica Below Zero obviously has a much more better story content already. Like the structure is much better. If you've not played the first one, you get a series of tapes and recordings that basically tell you where to go, a few radio signals, but that's really it. You don't have no voice as the protagonist, and the story elements are there, but they're only there if you really want to hear them, find them, etc. In Below Zero, you're hit with a story straight away. You're given story beats every 2 minutes, literally talking to other members. I'm not going to spoil it too much, but it's good. I love it. And I think they must have listened to feedback from the first one that said, we love the recordings, we love the story elements. Please add some more story elements for the second one. But again, when you do that, I feel like people want to complete. They want to see that complete story. And when you do it as an early access, expecting people to wait months and months for the next section of that story, I don't think it works very well. Not for an early access title. It used to work for Telltale Games because they would have very good structures, beginning, middle and end of each episode, and you'd be left waiting for that next episode of whatever game it was. Walking Dead, The Wolf Among Us, whatever it was. Of course, people did get sick of that model. They did get sick of the delays, the time between episodes. Sometimes it wasn't always structured. And I think we're changing. The people that buy games nowadays are much different from how they used to be. And early access is very different now. So many people do early access. There are so many games being made out there that there are some fantastic projects, but there's also a lot of floating poo around too. And so you've got to be able to deliver something pretty concise and good. Now, I'm looking in the world now. I'm playing in creative mode. I've had to just complete a little bit of the story there to get me into this point. And there just isn't enough content to warrant $20 yet, even if you're a Subnautica fanboy, and I generally am. I'm going to give you a quick brief history of Subnautica for me. I picked it up when it first came to Xbox Game Preview, probably the worst way to play it. It was littered with bugs, much more than the PC version, didn't have anywhere near the content. Over the next 18 months, they updated it frequently, had a little bit of a gap where they didn't update it to keep it on time with PC, and then they managed to catch back up and they were updating it more or less at the same time. When it came to full release, they released the full release on PC, but they didn't release it on the Xbox, not yet, because quite frankly it still ran like absolute shit. The game on Xbox really was not the best way to play it. In fact, 3 times I tried playing the game, and each time I was put off so much by the bugs, so much by the problems, that I just couldn't continue. Now, it was early access, of course, and that's what early access can be. I'm not stupid. I'm not trying to say that, you know, you should expect great things from an early access title. However, compared to PC, Xbox certainly wasn't on the same level in terms of the bugs, the problems, the issues, and it just really was unplayable. Whether or not it was the frame rates that made you feel sick, or various other bugs and game crashes that just didn't really happen as much on PC, from what I could see anyway. When it first came out though, on PC 1.0, I did some guides tutorials, a couple of them blew up and it was pretty good. I had to wait then, and I was a bit upset at the time that Xbox wasn't going to get the full 1.0 release for a while. I expected it to come out maybe a month or 2 after the PC version, and instead it came out pretty much like 10 months later, 11 months later. Thank God though, they managed to get another development team in. They done some really good work and they managed to get it better, much better than it was. It still had problems when it launched on the Xbox and the PS4 back a couple months ago. However, even then it had a bunch of bugs and problems and issues after 1.0 release that took a good month or so to fix, and they're still looking at problems and issues. This is where I start getting more critical, because I always firmly believe that games can have problems and issues, and even when they come out of early access or their full releases, you expect a big patch within a couple of weeks to fix stuff. But when a game keeps having problems, and when a game's already been in early access for years and it's still got problems, that's when you got to be a little bit more critical. And it goes against what I want to do, because Subnautica is a fantastic game. I loved it. Once I actually got to play the 1.0 version, and I have to say I played most of it on PC, I really fell in love with it. I'd done much more guides over Christmas and I was just really enjoying it. It was my go-to game to enjoy, to play, to explore and run around this world, finding out the story beats and taking a look at it. So when Below Zero was sort of announced a bit earlier than I thought great, I can jump into this, make loads of content, it's going to be an extension, it's not going to be a DLC now, it's going to be a brand new storyline. They seem like they've added new stuff, new creatures, and it just doesn't suit the early access model anymore. I think the developer has grown so big that having early access for a game where they're really focusing so much on story is a little bit redundant, and it kind of takes away and detracts from the game. You might be the kind of player that can wait months and months for the next segment of something or to see an update for something, but I generally think for this type of game it's kind of spoilt it. And it goes along the same sort of lines as other games where they'll get content, we all get hyped for it, we all come try it, and then we forget about it for another 6 weeks. Other games don't necessarily do that, and they're very different, but Ark, Conan, any other game that's been in early access like that, survival games, they generally had content every few months or every month while they was in early access. It gets players hyped, and in between that time, they've got a game to play. They can do base building, they can go and tame dinosaurs, they can go and conquer new exotic dungeons in Conan, whatever it is. Now, they're very different games, they're very, very different. They're open world more, and it's much more survival based, and of course multiplayer. But when you take into account other games like The Forest or even Stranded Deep, you start to see that they've still got content you can do. The base building is much more robust. You've always got some sort of threat in between going for stories. And during their whole development, they kind of had these little bits and bobs added to it, so that in between waiting for new content, you could do other stuff. Subnautica has never been like that. Once you've explored certain areas, or once you've got to a point where you're up to date with the story that was there in early access, you're kind of stuck. And unless you really, really loved it, there wasn't really enough reasons to carry on playing it. Subnautica isn't a survival game in my eyes. It is an exploration with jump scares, and I love it for that. I don't want it to be a full survival game. But it does keep people happy having more sort of nuanced crafting or a little bit more complicated base building. And again, this is the same problem with Below Zero. If they're going to go for story and they're going to go for a real good opening and these story beats that are going to keep us playing, we still need stuff in between. We need lots and lots of things to muck around with. And that's currently what Below Zero just doesn't have. It doesn't have anything to make us kind of play it in between. Now, I am going to start mucking around with building. I've been running around sort of just waffling on. And it's a real shame. It's a real shame. I just don't think it's got enough content. And I mentioned a few games earlier, like Stranded Deep, like The Forest. They're all cheaper at the moment than this game. This game is currently retailing at $20. It's a little bit more expensive than the original Subnautica was during early access. So you can bet you're behind. It's going to be the same price when it comes out, or maybe a little bit more expensive. And I've just got to say, don't buy it. I think if you're a long-time fan, you'll be a bit disappointed. There's not more to discover and explore straight away. If you're not a long-time fan, it will put you off the game completely, only having really a basic 2 hours worth of gameplay at best, even if you're not really that experienced with it. I think also having the game, the original, for free on the Epic Store launcher has given an expectation that that's what people expect. You know, some people may not have even played the first one, and when it comes to playing the second one, they're going to be a little bit like, where's all the content? I don't understand. How can the first game be so, you know, different? And like, why haven't got the same sort of content, even though it is early access? So a lot of people will be going, it is early access, and you may be crying out in the comments now, why am I being such an idiot, and why am I treating it so harsh? But we do live in a modern age now where there is so much choice. There are so many great games out there. And I just can't recommend paying $20 for something that only gives me an hour and a half content. And I am not a lover of big long games. In fact, I've stopped playing open world big games like Red Dead Redemption, Assassin's Creed, because I just do not want to put 100 hours into a game like that anymore. I much prefer shorter, smaller, more, I don't know, intimate things that get me going straight away, can give me a satisfactory conclusion. I enjoy myself playing that game for a few hours, and I don't mind if it's short. There's plenty of little smaller story games that do that and offer that. Subnautica isn't one of them right now. The original though, when you've got time and you put time into it, that's the best way to play that game. Playing it and getting through the story beats, unlocking the new vehicles, trying to find a way to escape the planet, adding all the other bits and bobs like the radio signals, it all comes together when you play it sort of continuously. It's best played like binge playing it. And this is the last point I guess I'm going to make on this, is that there are other games out there at the moment. Green Hell, fantastic little survival game if you're looking for something along these lines, has got story elements to it, has got a bunch of new features being updated pretty much every month. That game is in early access. It's not much more expensive. I think it might even be cheaper than Below Zero at the moment. So what makes players want to pick up Below Zero and not pick up another game like Green Hell or something brand new like The Raft? Well, I say brand new, that's been in early access a while now, but again, they're adding consistent updates. There's enough to do while you're not completing the story beats, or you know, you can sail around for a while. So I think Below Zero, I've just got it planning wrong with this game. I don't think it needed to be early access. I would have rather have waited 18 months for this to come out. If it was a standalone game, you can do that. For DLC, you kind of need it to be fresh, but because it is a standalone game, there'd be nothing wrong in waiting that long to see the next part, you know, to see what actually happens with the next part. The developers want this to be a story-led game. They want you to really buy into the protagonist Sam, her sister, and just experience everything there is to do with that. And I think that's great, amazing. I can't wait to carry on seeing more of this. but it just doesn't do enough at the moment to make you want to sit there for months in between. And when new content will come out, it's kind of just going to be a little bit like recapturing and replaying it, and some people really enjoy that. But I definitely know a lot of people will just want an experience that gives them a complete experience, and that doesn't mean it has to be a full game. I'm not trying to say that early access games have to be a full experience, but early access games do need content that will keep you coming back to it, and that's what Below Zero doesn't have. It doesn't have content that keep you coming back, hence why it's not worth your $20 now, hence why I say go and play Green Hell, or maybe other games as well like Myst. That's another good little brand new sort of survivalist-esque game on the way, or even pick up an older one if you've not played it, like The Forest. We do live in an age where there's much more choice, and even if you love a game, and I love the original, and I love the way the devs have always interacted most of the time as well, like honestly I could not have a bad word to say against them, really. But I just feel like I just scratch my head why they decided to release this as this content. I just don't understand. I just feel like it was a kind of a waste of early access. They should have maybe gone for a brand new project if they wanted to do something different. In terms of what you get if you do buy Below Zero, you will have access to some new features. There is the new biome to explore. A lot of it is incomplete. There are obviously some placeholders as well for the story, and beyond going past the point where it says, you know, the rest of the game's going to be broken, I really can't say how much of this stuff you can find. I'm spawned in this control room. If this is in the story part at the moment, or survival part, or freedom part, that's great. That adds another new feature. But I've got a feeling these pieces aren't necessarily in the main game yet, or not fully anyway. And I just feel like we should have had more of a bang, you know, should have been more features, more modules, at least a real good look at the hover bike in action. That was the main draw of the trailer, seeing a hover bike flowing over the snow, and at least some new enemies, like real big creatures, like scary ones. We've seen like the rock puncher, that's pretty cool. We've seen a few of the other ones as well, like the oxygen circle fish, whatever they're called, but people love being scared, and leviathans and the big scary monsters from the original is what got people going in this game. No doubt all of that is going to come during early access, and we will see these fantastic stuffs being added to it, but I just feel like it's segmented, it's broken up, and it's just better played as one whole game rather than over the course of a year. I don't think you need that much feedback or that many ideas from a community when you've already released the game and the sequel is pretty much more or less the same thing but just new stuff added. You don't need to have early access for that. You could just quietly go ahead and develop it and publish it behind doors. You know, I just don't see the reasoning. Now they've got their development board, which is great, and we can see where they're going, and you can go and check out their board, which gives you development, shows you pictures, shows you what they're working on. Fantastic that a developer does that and opens that up to us. So Unknown Worlds is a safe bet. You know, some games you'll never know if they're going to come out of early access, or if they'll be completed, or if they're cash grabs. And 100% Unknown Worlds, I will put money on them releasing this game in full and being fantastic. No doubt about it. But it just doesn't warrant your purchase right now. And sadly, I wish I could say different. You will get a great game out of this. And if you've got the luxury of having extra cash, and really not a problem for you revisiting something every few months to see what's improved or what's been updated, then Below Zero may be for you. But I generally think you're going to spoil the story. I think you're going to spoil the overall feel of the game by playing it in bit parts. Maybe I'm wrong on this. Maybe they're not going to add any more story content until the end now, and that might be something to think on for the developers. Literally only just keep adding items, vehicles, structures. But because they've made the start of this so based around the story, so part of the whole game, it would seem a bit weird not having any more story now, and that would maybe even make it even worse. Like I said, I don't really know the answers. I just know that sometimes splitting stuff up isn't always good, particularly when it's story focused, and if you've got no other things to do in between the story, waiting around, then people aren't just going to necessarily be willing to come back and visit it, even if you have added new stuff. Probably one of the most famous cases of this is The Long Dark. That's a fantastic survival game, very similar. It's a lone experience. You explore the cold lands of like Canada. But that suffered massively because they tried implementing a story to it, and they've done it in episodes. And right now, it's taken around nearly 18 months to get the third episode out. It's not even due, but it's been that long since the last episode came out and until the next one will come out. And it went against them. A lot of people will never play the story of The Long Dark, no matter how good it is, because they just don't want to come back to a game they played to death while in early access. There has to be good reasons to come back. Keep Below Zero on your radar. Absolutely buy it once it's coming closer to full completion. But if you're a lover of the story, if you've already seen bits on YouTube, or you like the story content in the first one and you wanted that expanded, I would avoid Below Zero until it's fully complete. If you're a big fan of survival games and crafting and base building, I still think there's other games out there for you right now. I still think this game will be worth it for you when you come back to it when it's complete, but it just doesn't have enough to draw you in. So there we go, that is what I think about Below Zero. If you haven't bought it already, or you're even thinking of watching a YouTuber play it, I would strongly suggest you don't. If you really want to pick this game up eventually, don't watch any YouTubers play it. You will spoil the story for yourself. It's better played all in one go. If you agree with me, disagree with me, let me know in the comment section down below. Tell me why it's worth spending $20 on this right now. I will keep you up to date on the game. I will show you all the updates, the new stuff, whenever we add new creatures and new items. I will showcase all of that stuff as it happens. And let's just hope that they come up with a good way to not spoil the story or have the story kind of come in bits and bobs during early access. I'm Jade Plays Games. I will see you rat bags later.